Jazeera, I'm Dale Walters. Here is a look at today's top stories. A gunman opens fire inside the Washington, D.C. Navy Yard, killing and injuring multiple victims and forcing parts of the nation's capital to go into lockdown mode. 5 years after the economic collapse that landed the U.S. into a recession, President Obama now set to address the current state of the economy in an address from the Rose Garden. Rescues and evacuations in Colorado. Hundreds of homes have been destroyed. Thousands of people still have yet to be accounted for. UN inspectors say there is now convincing evidence that chemical weapons were used in an attack in Syria. We continue to follow breaking news coming out of the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Police are saying at least one gunman has been contained in a building on the grounds of the Washington Navy Yard. That is in southeast Washington. As many as 3 shooters, including one in military fatigues, is on the scene. This according to a report by the Washington Post. Shortly after 8:20 this morning, there were shots fired inside the Naval Sea Systems Command headquarters building. That is on the grounds of the Washington Navy Yard that you see there on the banks of the Anacostia River. There are conflicting reports as we see these scenes live coming in of the number of people who were shot. A spokesman by the police is now confirming that maybe 4 victims were shot, including one who was a police officer. Other reports are suggesting as many as 10 people were shot. By the way, the police saying that as many as 4 fatalities may have taken place and 10 people shot, possibly 12, and a second officer. Once again, those reports have not been independently confirmed. By numbers, there are about 3,000 people who work inside that massive fortress, which is called the Naval Sea Systems Command headquarters. And emergency teams, as you can see, are on the ground. They are working right now to provide shelter to all of those personnel. 6 local schools in and around that area now said to be on lockdown. We turn now to our White House correspondent, Mike Vaquera. Mike, we know we're supposed to hear from the president this afternoon from the Rose Garden. What are they saying about this event that is unfolding across town?
Well, as far as the White House is concerned, Dale, we do understand that the president has been briefed several times on the situation here. As you can imagine, this having ripple effects across the security environment across Washington, D.C., being as though the Navy Yard. I'm turning here now from M Street Southeast and looking north at the United States Capitol, some 5 blocks away. Dale, you and I have covered situations like this for many years, often conflicting information. I don't know that I've ever seen one 2 hours, more than 2 hours into this now. 8:20 a.m., 2 hours and 40 minutes ago, these shots were fired from what we understand from the police. Still, information extremely sketchy, extremely conflicted. And I think it's wise for us at this point just to wait for the police. We're standing here on the corner of M Street Southeast and 3rd, about 3 blocks west of the Navy Yard, waiting for a briefing we understand could come at any moment. You mentioned many of the conflicting reports, information swirling around out there about the number of shooters, the number of casualties. Let's just stick to what we know at this point. There were shots fired at the Navy Yard in southeast Washington, home of the Naval Sea Systems Command. Some 3,000 people work in that facility. A massive police response here in Washington. The Metropolitan Police, the FBI, the Park Police, any number of jurisdictions here coordinating the first response to the situation. You can see helicopters, Park Service helicopters, Park Police helicopters hovering above the Navy Yard now. The situation very chaotic. We know that the Navy has said that there are individuals wounded here. We've heard reports that among them are law enforcement officers, one form or another. The initial report said a security guard. Again, let's just sit tight here and wait for the information. We do know that this is a situation that the police obviously are responding to with full force here in Washington.
Mike Vaquera, please stand by. We have received word now from the United States Capitol Police. This coming in just moments ago. This is what they had to say. The United States Capitol Police continues to monitor the confirmed active shooter incident that they say is confined to the Navy Yard. Says that there is no known threat to the Capitol complex by way of positioning the Navy Yard not far from the building, that iconic building that you know is the U.S. Capitol. They say that out of an abundance of caution, the United States Capitol Police will continue to conduct enhanced security operations on the Capitol complex. As a proactive measure related to the Navy Yard incident, enhanced security measures may be visible and observed as they continue to concentrate their assets on the Capitol ground. In other words, protecting the men and women in Congress. This is also a statement that we got in just moments ago from the White House. As Mike Vaccaro mentioned, they too are watching the events that are taking place in Southeast Washington, D.C. very closely. This from the White House. The president has been briefed several times about the unfolding situation at the Washington Navy Yard by an assistant to the president for Homeland Security. The president directed his team to stay in touch with our federal partners, including the Navy and FBI, as well as local officials. They go on to say, we urge citizens to listen to the authorities and follow directions from the first responders at the site. And Mike, as I know that you know, unlike many cities, when something like this happens in Washington, there are a plethora of law enforcement agencies who are involved, and I am looking at a number of them right now where you are standing.
Oh, that's right, Dale. As the helicopters continue to hover above, you know, there are some 27 separate police organizations, police departments, is probably the best word, within the confines of the District of Columbia. The military obviously has its own police branch, the Metropolitan Police here, the Park Police. Obviously, we are on federal property technically, as you know, Dell, as police and helicopters and police cars continue to whiz by us on M Street. And so there is a coordinated response here. These are the sorts of things, Dell, the sorts of situations that have actually been rehearsed over and over again, particularly over the course of the last 12 years since 9/11. The security obviously beefed up considerably since then, and obviously the level of coordination between these law enforcement services has beefed up considerably since then. Obviously, in a situation like this with so much chaos, so much swirling about, reports of a shooter or shooters on the loose within the Navy Yard, this is something that you can never plan for any particular situation, certainly not something like this. But in terms of communications, in terms of chains of command, things of that nature, this has all been rehearsed before. You never know how it's going to work out until a situation like this arises, however.
Mike Vaccaro, stand by. There is, by the way, a local SWAT team which is located about a block away from that particular location. The reason being, back in the late 80s, all the way up to approximately the year 2000, that was a very active crack zone, and there were multiple arrests and multiple shootings that took place there on a nightly basis. We're joined right now by Manuel Gomez. He is a former FBI officer, and he also worked here in New York. Mr. Gomez, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
An active shooter situation, what exactly is that?
An active shooter situation is just a situation when you have a confirmed armed individual in the premise, and this individual is still at large, still has been undetained, not arrested, and is still out and very possibly offering a danger to the public at large.
Mr. Gomez, as I watch these images coming in from the nation's capital, it appears to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this situation seems to be growing more concerning by the hour. At first, the first reports were that there was an initial gunman. Now we're receiving reports that there may be two gunmen with multiple injuries and multiple fatalities. What does that tell you?
Well, that tells me that we're now over 2 hours into this event, and we still haven't even determined how many gunmen we have. So what that tells me is we don't have a lot of information. And that is the first thing we need. We need to ascertain specifically how many gunmen there are, what type of weapons they're carrying, and ultimately where they're holed out, what their motives or intentions are, and to stop them as soon as possible.
But does it also tell you that this is not somebody that is a disgruntled ex-lover or something like that going in to perhaps take out their frustrations on a husband or wife, that this has escalated into something far more serious?
Well, certainly if there's more than one person, the chances that this is just a disgruntled employee is slim to none. If it's more than one person, it's a collective effort to harm people for whatever reason. Again, we don't know, but it certainly piques the danger level, because now we're dealing with multiple individuals, which we don't know who they are, what their motives are, and what their ultimate goal could be. If it's somebody that's going to eventually plan on taking their lives after taking as many with them, well, we're dealing with very, very dangerous individuals.
Mr. Gomez, as I was watching the images coming in, there is that shot of that helicopter airlifting someone out. That seems to indicate to me that the active scene itself is not safe for the emergency responders that we see gathered on a perimeter to go inside. Is that the way you interpret that particular image?
Yes, that's a correct analysis of that. At this point, if our forces haven't gone in force, and what's usually done in these situations after the place is deemed safe enough for SWAT and law enforcement to go in, is a room-by-room clearing. So apparently, it appears that we don't even know where these individuals are held out. And that's, I'm sure at this very moment, they're trying to ascertain again how many individuals, what kind of firepower they have, what their motives are, and where they are, so that they could pin them down to get the required firepower in there to stop the threat.
Mr. Gomez, please stand by because we are going to go by phone right now in a second to Jim.